Welcome to another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I am your host, Kyle King, and the goal of this podcast is to help you create an ecosystem of academic excellence. Through inspiring conversations, practical strategies, and actionable insights, we empower educators, change makers, and leaders just like yourself, foster trust, collaboration, and provide them with the tools, the skills, and the methodologies to help you ultimately create an ecosystem of academic excellence. When is the last time you craved something? Whether it was craving your college football team to win a game, whether it was that cupcake or vacation, whether it was that dinner restaurant or that meal that you weren't supposed to eat. What does it do for you? What does it do when you think about it, when you want to receive it? What do you imagine when you think about it, when you're visualizing it on a day-to-day basis? And we're going to talk about how we can create that same feeling for donors and fundraisers working with your school. To create, like, how do I get donors and fundraisers to crave working and donating and delivering value to my school and partnering with my students or partnering with my organization? And we're going to talk about a five-step method that we're using here at the Culture Lab, that we're working with organizations across the nation to perfect, so that you can get organizations outside of yours to build trust, and understanding that building trust is first. But ultimately, once you build trust, you create a system of results where your school feels like a superhero. Your school feels like a celebrity. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you today. This conversation was birthed out of a multitude of experiences for me, but the sales process is oftentimes where schools and organizations, mission-driven organizations, get stuck. So I wanted to be able to pour in and pour out of my knowledge of the sales process that we're using here at the Culture Lab, where it came from, and how you can use this same method as well. A little bit of background story though. So in early 2020, we recognized we were in the midst of a global pandemic. We recognized the COVID-19 virus had spread all throughout the world and specifically impacted the educational realm, the educational industry as a whole. And what I found is that teachers and educators and even teacher assistants were only making roughly $35,000 to $38,000 a year. And at that time, majority of the teachers within the specific school district that I worked with, they didn't have enough money working that one job to live and pay all of their bills. So because of that, they had another job. During COVID, a lot of those second and third jobs, whether it was bartending or restaurants or just working retail, a lot of those jobs closed and the world essentially shut down and was silent for a little bit of time. Because of that, it stripped a lot of resources for these teachers to be able to live. And I had stories of teachers having to get their cars repossessed, teachers losing their homes and getting evicted, teachers, like a lot of various things that were happening during this period of time, simply because teachers didn't have the resources to be able to sustain the various changes that were happening in our global economy and throughout the world. Because of this, I recognize a major gap. It's not that teachers' jobs were closing. It's that educators didn't realize the true value that they held, and they didn't understand how to monetize their specific skill set. At the time, I did. At the time, I was a 5-time author, had written the books, The Mission Plan, The Decision, Mission Plan, The Discovery, The Mission Plan, The Destiny, the Mission Plan Complete series, a complete success series, and then 25 Years of Heaven, which was a collection of poems. So at this time, I had launched books, I was speaking, I was doing different things, building curriculums and all of these different things, but education wasn't my only source of income. So what I did at the time is I wanted to break into entrepreneurship, and I wanted to do something a little bit differently. So I built this company, and I started this company called The Writer's Game. And at the time, I didn't really know that years later it would build, or it would end up being as big as it had grown. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to ultimately just teach teachers how to write books and how to use their story and their experience to be able to essentially generate some income. So with that, I created a model, created a framework, and from that framework, we built a digital program, a coaching model, and all of these various things. And by the end of that first year, we helped 18 teachers write books, 12 of which made exponential money, 6 of which left the profession. And at that time, I had something. I realized that I had something that people wanted, people desired, and people saw as valuable. And this whole conversation is not about that model, but why I say this is because throughout me growing that business, I really got good at creating a sales process that when I got on the phone and when we had our sales calls, I had an ability and have an ability to extract enough information from the person on the phone to be able to tailor what I'm communicating to them for it to ultimately lead into me closing them and them investing upwards of $1,500 to $15,000 to work with our business right there on the phone. What this conversation is not is you learning those specific skill sets to just close people over the phone. And I'm not going to say that we're just about to start cold calling donors and closing them on the phone. I do believe that there's a lot of time and relationship building that has to go into that process. But I do want to provide you today the 5-step method that we used then, the 5-step method that we're using now, to be able to create an energy and a momentum for donors and fundraisers and philanthropists to crave your specific school based upon our CRAVE 5-step method. The C of our CRAVE method is to connect. In an early episode, I talk about the importance of starting with the personal and understanding their demographic information, where their pain points and their desires, their pain points and challenges, their wants and desires, their demographic information, potential objections that they have, frequently asked questions that they're going to be asking. But outside of just the business side, take time to actually connect with the individual. What have they heard about your school? What interested them in even connecting with your school? How do they approach fundraising? Who are they? What school did they go to? Or did they go to a school? What is the work that they're doing? What are their thoughts or perspectives about giving as in totality? When they give, do they give time, talent, or treasure? What are the parameters of giving time versus talent versus treasure? What are some of the causes that light up something inside of them? What are some of the things that they truly care about? If the world was coming to an end and they had $1 million to give to one cause, or not the world, if their life was coming to an end and they had $1 million to give to one cause, where would they give that money? So that we're understanding what's important to that person, but we're also pulling the curtain back and understanding that actual person. Do they have family? Are they married or are they single? Are they widowed? How did they essentially build their wealth or their access, or all of these various questions that we're asking? But this also offers you the opportunity, or provides you the opportunity, to start with personal as well. You're sharing your background. You're sharing who you are. People give to people, not just to institutions. So I want you to actually connect with them on a person-to-person way, in a person-to-person way. Once we connect with them and build that personal connection, now we move to the R, which is the reveal. In the reveal stage, there's some critical questions that I want you to be able to ask and you be able to walk them through so that you can reveal, similar to a few of the questions that I asked earlier, what's most important and the direction that we can be able to guide them in as a part of this conversation that we're having. One of the questions is, what are their goals? When I think of the next 3 to 6 to 9 to 12 months, what are some goals that they would want to achieve that they would deem as, they would look at as successful? Number 2 is, when do you want to accomplish these goals? And what I'm breaking down is the why, the when, the who, the what, and the how. Okay. So what are your goals? When do you want to accomplish this? Why is this important? And I think that's a powerful question, because most times when I ask donors or fundraisers why that's important, then they go into a personal story that connects them with why that is in fact very important. Who is holding you accountable in accomplishing these goals? How do you want to be communicated with? Or, how can we collaborate together so that we can be able to accomplish these goals? Again, are an important question. And then, when is the last time that you felt that you accomplished that type of goal, and how did that make you feel? And I think it's important to ask these types of questions on the front end, because it reminds them of when they accomplish that goal, how that feeling will feel, and reminds them of what's most important. And it keeps that at the forefront of the conversation. Once we've connected, once we've revealed pain points, challenges, desires, and wants, and all of these critical questions, now it's time for us to do some affirming. And I believe this is the stage in the CRAVE method and the sales process method that transitions them from just a prospect to a person of interest to actually somebody that you're building a relationship with. And affirming cannot happen if you did not do a good job on the connecting and the revealing side. So I have 5 bullet points here that I want you to consider, but we're only going to talk about 4 of them. So number 1 is, so what I'm hearing is that your top priorities are this, this, and this. Is that right? Okay. Thank you, John. Well, it sounds like you're looking for something that not only solves this problem and you communicate the problem, but also supports this specific vision and you communicate the vision. Did I get that correctly? Okay. Thanks, John. So my question for you, John, is if we could deliver exactly what you just described, would that feel like the right fit for you? The reason that I asked that question is because I want the individual that's sitting in front of me, or over the phone, or over FaceTime, or over Zoom, or over the Microsoft Teams, whatever that looks like, I want them to recognize that this is a partnership. It's not a handout. It's not a donation. This is an investment in something that you're going to see a return in your investment. Okay. And then that 4th question is, how important is it to you that this solution also supports boom? And then you're now able to connect and provide a personal or emotional driver that leads them back to, again, that why is this important to you question that I asked in the revealing phase. Okay. So the first step is to connect. Then we must reveal. Now we have to affirm. We have to rephrase all of those questions and reframe so that then we can get to the V of the CRAVE model, which is the value proposition. This is my favorite, because now you're taking everything that they're saying and then you're flipping it. And then you're now positioning your specific offer to be closed, whether it's a package, whether it's an investment, decision, whatever it is. This is how you transition them from, wow, they're really invested, to they've cut a check. The first question that I ask in the value proposition stage is, what's the cost to you if the challenge continues after another 6 months? What is the cost to you if you don't move this money from a tax implication standpoint? What is the cost if schools continue to decline in the way that they are? And how is that going to impact the next generation of the workforce that you're wanting to recruit? What is the cost of not making this decision? to move forward with us today. Okay. Number 2 is, how would it feel if your team didn't have to worry about this? How would it feel if your team didn't have to worry about recruiting, hiring anymore, and we were able to provide you a pipeline of educational scholars that were able to intern, but then also come to your institution after, or to your company after school, as entry-level positions, to be able to fill those slots because you provided us $1 million workforce development STEM lab in our building. So you identify ways to be able to connect what you're trying to do as an institution with what's most important to that organization as well. Question number 3, which part of what I shared today feels like it would make the biggest difference for you? Again, it's about reframing all of the questions to fit the needs of the individual that is sitting or standing in front of you. It's not about asking for money. It's about repositioning value and recognizing that this is a dual opportunity for us to be impacted, but for you all to be impacted as well. Okay. And then the last question is, how does this align with the goals that you've set for this quarter or for this year? One of the questions that I would always ask prior to closing people, or even at the beginning of conversations, is like, look, from a scale 1 to 5, how serious are you? From a scale 1 to 5, 1 being I'm just searching, we're just having a conversation, to 5, if I don't spend money or invest money or donate money, we're going to get killed in taxes. Where would you say you land? And that initially tells you, it's an aggressive question. It takes courage and boldness, but it tells you where they are and how hot essentially that lead is. If they move over here where they're just having a conversation, they're here on the meter. But the goal is to move them closer to, hey, they're ready to donate. They're ready to work together. They just want some more information. And I think when you ask that question, it allows you to really understand how to frame the conversation and how to frame the questions that you're asking those individuals as well. And then the E of the CRAVE method is to execute and close. Questions that we can be able to ask on this stage is, first question is, based upon all that was discussed, do you feel this is the right solution for you right now? The reason why I asked that question first is because if they say no, then now I counter with, okay, well, what are the things that weren't said in this presentation or needs to be clarified in this presentation so that we can be able to move you closer? Now, what they're usually going to say is, I need time to talk to my team or look at our finances. We just want to review proposal, whatever the case may be. And that's fine. And then that offers you an opportunity to follow up and set a meeting on the calendar together so that we can ensure that things are happening. What are the deliverables that you would like to see prior to our next meeting so that we can ensure the best use of your time as well as our time? Boom. This allows you to, again, regain control of the conversation and be able to move the conversation forward. Question number 2, what would success look like for you 90 days after we start? What this is called choice architecture. It's saying that we're going to start. It's not an option, but 90 days after we work together, 90 days after the investment comes, 90 days after you cut a check, what do you want things to look like? What will success look like? Then question number 3 is, are there any concerns with you moving forward today? And this is a hard question to ask because a lot of times what happens when I coach my team and when I coach my colleagues or even my students, what happens here is you talk too fast. You ask, are there any concerns holding you back from moving today? And I ask this question because no. I don't want you to do that. I want you to literally just sit in it. Just sit in it. And I think it's in this process of sitting in it that uncomfortable feeling builds up, but then it offers them the opportunity to really be able to communicate what's going on, what's in their mind. Again, when you crave something, you don't stop thinking about it. You want it and you would do anything to go get it. It is a possibility, and there's an opportunity that exists for organizations corporations, small businesses to feel like that about what you're offering. We have to connect. We have to reveal. We have to affirm. We have to position our value, and we have to execute and close. If you follow this 5-step method, I can guarantee that you'll close more deals, and you'll be able to create a greater impact for the ecosystem that you were called to serve. I appreciate you so much for joining us on another episode of the Contagious Culture Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle King. And one of the questions that we always end with is ask yourself this one question: what type of culture am I spreading? Culture is everywhere and is anything. Make yours worth catching. We'll see you next episode.